Chelsea 2, Arsenal 2, an exhilarating game at Stamford Bridge that saw Arsenal come from 2-0 down to salvage a point. Hi guys, my name is Izzy, and if you're new to the channel, you know what to do. Hit that like and that subscribe button to let YouTube and everybody else know that you are enjoying this content. Now on to the game at Stamford Bridge, a game that saw Chelsea rebirthed, a game that saw Mauricio Pochettino imbue enough confidence in his team to go toe-to-toe against a potential title rival. Now, Chelsea, we know, have struggled so much this season. Some of the results that they've had have been scuppered right at the death by some missed chances. They have been looking as though they are not confident enough to go toe-to-toe against teams that they definitely should beat, as exemplified by their loss against Nottingham Forest. But they also had some decent performances, such as their draw against Liverpool. But when they were facing Arsenal today, they were facing a team that has had a very good recent record against them, especially at the ground that they were playing at today. Arsenal, on the other hand, are coming off of a flyer of just beating Manchester City for the first time in 12 matches. So you can forgive a lot of people for thinking as though Arsenal would do very well in this game, but it was anything but. The first 15 minutes were a lesson in how to contain Arsenal. Chelsea were very good without the ball, and they were very threatening on the counterattack. So much so that in the first 20 or so minutes, Chelsea had just under 35% ball possession. Arsenal were shading about 65%. And they didn't do much with it. So much so that when Chelsea were attacking, Arsenal looked nimble. They looked afraid. And they looked as though they had not come back from the international break. And as the game moved on, a very controversial penalty came to the fore when William Saliba was adjudged to have handled the ball from very close proximity from a header from Mykhailo Mudryk. Now, these kind of situations are hard to judge, and we have been very, very hard on officials of late. They have made some clangers in the decisions, but this one is one that I can understand in the fact that it was a penalty adjudged by the letter of the law. The proximity to the ball from the onrushing header from Mudryk would have probably made somebody feel some sympathy for Saliba. However, he did still handle the ball. His arm was away from his body, and I can see why the officials gave the decision. I think it was extremely harsh, but I can see why they did. The only other thing that I heard some of the commentators saying was that they thought that the ball was on target, and it clearly wasn't. So if that was part of their reasoning as to why they gave this as a penalty, I would go against that. However, it was a penalty, and Cole Palmer did put Chelsea 1-0 ahead from the penalty spot. After that, Chelsea still contained Arsenal very well, and they were able to limit their attacks to 0 shots on target until just after the break. Malo Gusto was very good, but Marc Cucurella had Bukayo Saka in his pocket. It was very hard for Arsenal fans to watch this game and to see Arsenal so toothless in attack. So much so that I barely saw Martin Odegaard do anything in the first half. He was very anonymous. And it wasn't really because he didn't try to assert himself on the game, but it was because Chelsea were just that good defensively. They were very organized, and they seem to have realized as though they will not have as much of the ball as Arsenal would. But as the second half commenced, Chelsea started playing exactly the way they did when the game started, and they were duly rewarded when Mykhailo Mudryk scuffed his cross come shot and it went past David Raya, who was also still not having the best of appearances in the Arsenal goal. And it just seemed as though Arsenal were now looking down the barrel of a 2-0 loss against a side that they have generally played very well against. Chelsea were still being able to contain them very well, and it wasn't until just after the hour mark when Mikel Arteta realized that he needed to change the flow of how the game was going. Now, Tomiyasu had come in at halftime and seemed to have stabilized a little bit of what was going on at left back, because Zinchenko seemed as though he was not his usual self. He had already gotten a yellow card, and quite possibly they didn't want to be overrun and end up losing a man. Whether that was the thought that he had or whether Arsenal were just not that good defensively is only Arteta's knowledge at this point. But Arsenal realized that they needed to change the flow of this game. So with the substitutions, just as they did against Manchester City, came on, Arsenal started to look a little bit more threatening. However, they still didn't do anything much, and it wasn't until a mistake from Chelsea that Arsenal were able to have any semblance of a foothold in this game. Declan Rice turning in a misguided pass from the Chelsea goalkeeper that brought Arsenal back into this game. Eventually, Arsenal started to threaten more, and as the game progressed, it looked as though Arsenal were going to get an equalizer. Chelsea were still trying to hit them on the counterattack, but they seem to have become less confident in their ability to hold on to the ball. And an equalizer duly arrived when Bukayo Saka finally wriggled free of Cucurella's clutches and was able to deliver a pinpoint pass which Trossard was able to turn in expertly at the near post. It was very harsh on Chelsea, who up until that point had played very well. But as you can understand, a young team that is still growing in confidence had started to become jittery. And eventually, Arsenal could possibly have taken this game if Edin Nketiah was able to turn in a very difficult opportunity. Now, Chelsea can take a lot of heart from their performance today. They were able to limit Arsenal to very few chances, and in the end, Arsenal only did have 3 shots on target. But the problem with Chelsea is that their faltering confidence at the end of the game from just one mistake was able to allow an Arsenal side back into a game that they really should not have come back into. As an Arsenal fan, I am extremely overjoyed by the fact that we were able to rescue this game. But Chelsea can probably feel a little hard done by just because they really should have won this game based off of their performance. I think Chelsea shaded the game overall and they should have won it, but Arsenal's resilience to come back and salvage a draw is nothing to be sniffed at as well. Do I think that this is going to be new for Chelsea? No, I think they're still a team in progress, and I think that if they are able to stabilize their team a little bit better, they will eventually become the Chelsea that we've known them for. And if their owner can stop tinkering with the team and trying to invade the space of the manager and let him work, I think Mauricio Pochettino will get Chelsea firing again. Mikel Arteta will count this as a game which they were able to come back in a very tough ground against a very hostile environment and in a ground that Arsenal have had problems prior to his arrival, but they're now showing that they are able to come back in very tight circumstances. And Declan Rice is a wizard. I am extremely overjoyed when I watch him play, and his tenacity and his ability to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and bring an Arsenal side that was stuttering and that was looking as though they were staring down the barrel of a very devastating loss, coming off of the fact that they had played so well in their previous 2 games. He was able to arrest that, and a lot needs to be spoken about the fact that he is just a captain without the armband. I really liked his performance, and while he did have 1 or 2 shaky moments, as did most of the Arsenal team, he was able to wrestle the game back into Arsenal's corner. A lot can be said about Chelsea's resilience and their ability to finally show up in a very big game. This is not something that we don't think Chelsea can do. They did it against Liverpool in the first game of the season, where they were very good for most parts of those games. The only problem with Chelsea is not taking a lot of the opportunities that they've had. For example, Nicholas Jackson could have put them 3-0 up if he would have just had the composure to turn the ball before he tried to turn the goalkeeper. Eventually, Arsenal are going to count this as a good draw in their corner, and I think Chelsea will also count this as a good draw because before this game, a lot of people had written them off, me included. I thought that this was going to be an Arsenal win, and it was a very good showing by Chelsea. But that's all I got for right now, guys. Leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think about what transpired in this game. It's been your boy Izzy, and join me again as we will talk about more reviews later on today. Peace.